The Tabernacle of David, Burnsville, Minnesota presents a special video production. Andrew Gabriel Roth. The 24 Tanakh appearances of Yeshua.
So, once again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you. Again, it's great to be here, Tabernacle of David. And I'm very grateful for Brian and for Judah for bringing me here again and for all their hospitality. And this teaching is one that is very, very close to my heart, as was the other one that you just saw. But a lot of what was going on that inspired me about this particular teaching, which is the 24 Tanakh appearances of Messiah, Yeshua, had to do with, there's no nice word for it, heresy. And I was getting letters from people in tears, desperate for this teaching. Not because they knew this teaching existed, right? But because they were being besieged by people. You know how we saw in the previous presentation that there were people that went out from us that weren't us, that were teaching lies, and yet they claimed to come from us. This is also part of it. That Yeshua, they said, was just a man. Just a regular guy, okay, not Yahweh made flesh. And then there were others who said he wasn't human at all, right? Which is what we call Gnosticism, or Arianism, depending upon the flavor of the week, which basically was that he put on flesh like a garment. I'll give you one really little horrific snippet of that. There is a Gnostic teaching that while Yeshua was suffering on the torture stake, supposedly the real Yeshua was behind him laughing feverishly. They don't even know where I am, or who I am. This is terrible. Okay? There's no other word for it. So I wanted to show, if Yeshua is just a human being, then why is he making these appearances 2,000 years or so before his birth? Right? He must be something more than that. That's what this is about. And you can see some of the examples here. I like to point this one out. I got all the languages here. I got Greek, Logos, Devar, and Miltha, the word. No, I did not just put that up there. That was actually there before. We've got him wrestling with Jacob. We've got the burning bush at Sinai. We've got Balaam here. Joshua there. Our Messiah is all over the Tanakh. And we're going to define some terms and explain how we know it's him. How do we know it's him? Could be another angel, right? So let's get started. We're going to begin with the pre-incarnate titles of Messiah. That's the first thing. He's called the Word of Yahweh. Psalm 33:6. By the word of Yahweh were the heavens made, and by his breath their starry host. He's also called Ya'atz, the Counselor, Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim. Isaiah 9:6, Genesis 1:26 and 3:22 are evidences of the title, whereas the actual title is with Isaiah. In Proverbs 8:30, he's called the Architect, right? Ammon. We'll be getting into Proverbs. He's also called Hanaviah, the Prophet. Deuteronomy 18:15. He's called his son. That's what is his name and what is the name of his son, if you know. He's also called his anointed and son. Psalm 2, verse 1 through 7. And the son of Elam. Daniel 3, verse 25. But the most important, prominent title for Yeshua is this. The Malak of Yahweh, the messenger of Yahweh. Now, to be sure, Yeshua is not the only Malak mentioned in the Tanakh. So stop writing that email and updating your Facebook. I know. Okay? Okay, yeah. Well, that guy, okay. But he does tend to be the Malak that is not named. So he's not Gabriel and he's not Michael. Sorry, JWs, he's not. He is the son of the living Yah. He is not an angel. So this is part of the heresy that I put this together to combat. Yeshua, though, is not just a messenger in the normal sense because he created the messengers. He created the physical universe. He is therefore the Melech, Malakim, the king of the messengers. That's why he can't be Michael, Gabriel, or anything else. Continuing with this title. That means Yeshua can never be a lower form of angel, like a seraph or a cherub or whatever. And Yeshua, as we will see, will display powers and abilities that no other angel ever could, including Michael. Yeshua's ultimate rank over the angels as the Son of Yahweh means that his very name shows that king status over them and over us. So why 24 appearances? I'm going to predict that some of you are going to say, well, I think these other ones should count. I don't know why these didn't make the list, whatever they may be. I guarantee you, this is what will happen. There may be more than 24. But in terms of the criteria which I have, which is very strict, only 24 make the cut through my criteria. Which doesn't preclude the possibility that others might be, they might be. Right? But it's not a certainty to me. So what is possible and what is certain are two different things. I'm dealing with what is certain. But 24 is the number for resetting time. Not surprisingly. We talked a little bit about numbers in the Q&A. 24, the number of hours in the solar day. By the way, did you know that the priests were meant to sort of mimic the sun? Because they're also divided into 24. In Daniel, priests are called ministers, which is shamash in Daniel's Aramaic. And in Hebrew, the word for sun is shemesh. And guess what? It's the same word. This is why Aaron lights the Ner Tamid, the eternal lamp, at evening. As the sun is going down, it's like the sun is giving responsibility over to Aaron to light the tabernacle on earth as it lit the tabernacle in the heavens. Okay? But it's more than that. You see, we're going to play a little game here for a minute. It's called Count the Generations. It goes something like this. When we count, we're going to count from Adam to Exodus for what I call a deliverance cycle. Okay? When you reach a certain number, Yahweh delivers his people. So let's see how that works. And this manifests in a couple of different ways. The first is that when we count, we know that from Adam to Noah, 10 generations. Everyone agree? 10 generations from Adam to Noah. Now, from Noah's son, Shem to Abraham, another 10 generations. So now Abraham's number 20. Do we agree? Okay. So if Abraham's 20, Isaac is 21, Jacob is 22, right? Levi is 23, and Kohath is 24. And then the book of Genesis ends. Kohath is the last generation. So when Moses is done writing his 24 generations, he literally closes one book and opens another one. Exodus. Now, we can look at this two other ways. One is that if we continue the count, then we have Amram as 25, and Moses and Aaron as 26. 26 is the numerical value of Yahweh's name, and that's who the name is revealed to. That's one way to look at it. Another way is to continue the count with Amram as the new number 1. If that's the case, we're now going to count the high priests, from Aaron to Eleazar to Phinehas, all the way through those dudes mentioned in Chronicles. And when we get to the 24th name there, that dude is Jehozadak, the last priest who serves as the first temple is being destroyed. So we reach another 24 hours, 24 generations, and now we close the book on the temple. So this is a consistent pattern. There's a lot more where this comes from, but I'm just trying to focus on what I can talk about quickly. Okay. That's why, for Yeshua, he must appear how many times? 24. Right? And it's also possible, I know some folks will think that there's 2 extra appearances, which would make it 26. Okay, if I give in on those 2 sort of honorable mentions, now I have the numerical value of Yahweh's name, and Yeshua said he came in the name of his Father, so I'm good. But I'm sticking to 24. That's just sort of covering my bases a little bit. So it's very interesting that there are those borderline cases. And those borderline cases are actually in Genesis 15, 1 through 7 and 18 through 19. I can neither prove nor disprove that Yeshua was one of the 3 messengers that appeared to Abraham and then went to Sodom. I'm sure that one of those messengers is Yahweh. I am not sure if the other messengers, if one of those is Yeshua. He may be. I emphasize it is possible. I'm not eliminating it, but it doesn't meet my criteria. Just now, in Genesis 15, verse 1, the word of Yahweh appears to Abram. But the text tells us it is Abba Yahweh directly and not his son. That's why I'm going more with the Father here. And again in Genesis 15, 4 through 7, the same thing. And even though the 2 angels in Genesis 18 through 19 have an appearance to Abraham followed by another one to Lot, I'm counting that as one overall appearance. They don't go back up to heaven and then come back down. They're in place 1 and then they're in place 2. Therefore, it counts to me as one appearance. I'm just trying to define my terms here. As I said, my best guess is Yeshua's not there, but it's a guess. So let's then begin with the 24. The number 1 appearance is at creation, the creative word. We're going to look at this word, Bereshit, first word in Genesis. And these are the words within that first word. Bar, the Aramaic word for son. Bara, create, creation, from out of nothing. Resh, Rosh, head, first, chief, like Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh, head of the year, and so on. And here's one you might not have seen coming. The sheet, or the shet, is an Aramaic word for 6. In Hebrew, it's shesh, right? But in Aramaic, it's shet, okay? And it's used in the scripture, Daniel 3 verse 1. You can look that up. So there's a bit of a coded message here, folks. The son of creation is the head of the 6 days of creation. So, before creation was Yeshua. That's the first message. That's your first messianic prophecy, folks. In the first word of the first line of the first book. Here's the second appearance. He's called the Counselor. Here's the example of the Counselor. And I'll show you where he's called the Counselor. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And let them, meaning the man and the woman, like humanity, let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over the creeping creatures that creep upon the earth. And then a little later we read, and Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put out his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. Genesis 3:22. Now, and I'm probably going to anticipate what the slide's going to say, but I don't care. I'll just, at the risk of repeating this, the rabbis will teach that he's talking to his angels. That's the us. Let us make. I disagree. I think he's talking to the Counselor, who is his son. Let us. Which brings us to there. For a child shall be born unto us, a son shall be given to us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder or Wonderful. You can see a parallel in Judges 13:18. And then Ya'atz, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Eternity, and the Prince of Peace. So when he's saying, let us do this, let us go down, let us this, he's talking to Yeshua. And then that is described as his counselor. Number 3, the Malak of Yahweh, who is also called Yahweh directly. And it's really interesting that this should be Hagar who gets this vision. Kind of an unlikely choice. But then again, who would have thought a woman would be the first witness to the resurrection? Yah will do what he will do. And he wants it to be unexpected. It's for his glory that it's unexpected. And the messenger of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on her way to Shur, and he said, Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from? Where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, I am going to increase your seed. It doesn't say Yahweh will increase your seed. I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted. Could a regular angel do that? Hint, hint. That's what I'm talking about. When you start to see hints that this can't be a regular angel, that's because it isn't. The messenger of Yahweh said, see, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Yishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. Yahweh has heard. And he is to be a wild man, or a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, everyone's hand against him, and dwell over and against all of his brothers. And she called on the name of Yahweh who spoke to her. Well, wait a second, it's the messenger of Yahweh. But she's calling on the name of Yahweh who spoke to her. You are the El who sees. Even here have I seen after him who sees me. And even Hagar's name, which means stranger, perhaps to some authorities, or flight, journey, is a code about Yeshua. Because he's kind of on tour, and he's a stranger to them, and yet he isn't. Continuing. Similar situation, though, where Hagar despairs that her son Ishmael may be dying. That happens in Genesis 21. I don't think that in that case, the messenger is Yeshua. I think it's a regular angel. Right? I find none of the special evidence that the messenger who speaks with her in that situation is actually Yeshua. Now, why do I say that? It's because it ended up being Father Yah who said, I say, who directly completed Hagar's vision. So in other words, the messenger talked for a little bit when you read Genesis 21. When you get to verse 19, what happens is Father Yah spoke directly and completed the vision. So therefore, regular angel, not Yeshua. All right. Number 4. The object of Abraham's rejoicing is clearly Yeshua. He said in John 8:56, your father Abraham did long to see my day. He saw it and rejoiced. You know what he says? So here's my question. What does that mean? I believe this is what it means. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yahweh called to him from the heavens and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him. For now I know that you fear Elohim. I know you fear him. Seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and behind him the ram was caught in the bush by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Where will we see this pattern again? Offering up the lamb of Elohim to take away the sin of the world. And Abraham called the name of the place Yahweh Yireh, as it said to this day, on the mountain Yahweh provides. And of course we know, as I said, Yahweh did provide a lamb. By the way, he provided it in the exact same spot that Yeshua would give his life about 2,000 years later. Tell me that's a coincidence. Number 5, Yeshua's first appearance to Jacob. And it came to be at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted up my eyes and I looked in a dream, and I saw the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and mottled. You know, when Jacob does this odd little performance art, right? People are wondering, could Jacob manipulate genetic code to make the things come out speckled? Well, that'd be great, but he didn't. See, Jacob's got a secret. He had a dream. He was told in advance that the majority would be born that way, and he kind of invented the sideshow as a distraction because he already knew. And how did he know? Because the messenger of Elohim spoke to me in a dream saying, Yaakov, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift your eyes now and see all the rams, speckled and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the El of Bethel. So now he's basically saying, I am Yahweh. I am the El of Bethel, where you anointed the standing column and made a vow to me. And look in the text. When he did that, he made a vow to Yahweh. Now rise up and get out of this land and return to the land of your relatives. And again, the messenger is called El. directly. This, of course, is followed up by number 6, Yeshua's second appearance to Jacob. Yaakov was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he did not overcome him, he touched the socket of his hip. And the socket of Yaakov's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he says, "I am not letting you go until you have blessed me." So he asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Yaakov." And he said, "Your name is no longer Yaakov, but Israel, because you have striven with who? Elohim. And with men, and you have prevailed." And Yaakov asked him, saying, "What is your name? Please let me know your name." And he said, remember, the messenger is not saying, "I'm Gabriel, I'm Michael." It's a hint. It could be him, it could be Yeshua. And what does the messenger say? "Why do you ask me about my name?" Right? Total dodge. And he blessed him there, and Yaakov called the name of the place, this is important, called it Peniel, which means my El's face. Oh. Could that be clearer? "For I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved." And the sun rose up, and he passed over Penuel, which means the same thing, it's just a little variant. He limped on his hip. That's why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of the thigh of Yaakov in the sinew of the hip. Now here's another thing that's interesting. The messenger is called Ish, man, but actually turns out to be a Malak, messenger. See, only Abba YHWH or his messenger can change names out, can make Abraham, as a sign of covenantal status. And then I have this note to explain Peniel and Penuel in Luke 2, verse 36. All right, so here's the thing. We talked earlier about how numbers can be codes. Names can also be codes. And one of the most interesting is in Luke chapter 2, when Yeshua is presented before the temple, and he meets a whole bunch of interesting people. And my point is, the names of the people that he meets there spell out a particular message. So he's first blessed by Simon the priest, right? I believe this is the high priest, because at the time Yeshua was born, the name of the high priest was Shimon bar Boethus. And I believe that that was that Simon. Okay. So Shimon means to hear. Shema, right? Hear. But it's in plural form. You, plural, hear. Shimon. And then the next thing, he meets a girl named Anna, old lady named Anna. Well, Anna, Hannah, means mercy. That's what the name means. Hannah, Hannah, mercy. Right? And where's she from? She's a daughter of Phanuel, which is actually Peniel. So, the mercy is from Peniel, my El's face. Okay? Then, she's from the tribe of Asher, isn't she? Which in Hebrew is who? Then the next thing is Yeshua. So, in code, right there is, you all hear, plural, of the mercy from before the face of El, who is Yeshua. And that links this Peniel to that Peniel. Okay, as we continue. This identity is later confirmed by none other than Yaakov himself. In fact, I found the confirmation in this part of the scripture first, before linking it to Luke 2. He blessed Joseph and said, the Elohim for whom my fathers Abraham and Yitzchak walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil. Bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Yitzchak, and let them increase in multitude in the midst of the earth. Now get a look at this. Jacob names the messenger directly. I have waited for your Yeshua, O Yahweh. That's literally what it says. There it is. Yeshua Techa. I have waited for your Yeshua, your salvation, O Yahweh. And that brings us to Yeshua as the messenger at the burning bush in Exodus chapter 3. Here's a little detail that folks seem to read past a lot. Moshe was shepherding the flock of Yithro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock back into the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in the flame of the fire. And when he goes up to get a closer look, there's nothing there. But that first appearance, there's the messenger in the midst of the bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And then Yeshua shows up a little later. He parts the Sea of Reeds, or at least is part of the process of parting the Sea of Reeds. See, the reason I know that is because Moshe tells us he's there. Moshe said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the Yeshua of Yahweh. Let me get that back. Stand still and see the Yeshua of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you are never ever to see again. Just following the word. And then the messenger does his job. There it is. The messenger of Elohim, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the column of cloud, once he goes behind, the column of cloud went out from before them and stood behind them and came between the camp of the Mitzrites and the camp of Israel. And it was the cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night. And the one did not come near the other all the night. And then again, right here, Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind. But Yeshua's, at a minimum, he's there. He's helping them. He's helping Father Yah. And made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. And that's confirmed in Exodus 15, verse 8. Number 9. Yeshua is the messenger with Yahweh's name in him, who goes before Israel. See, I am sending a messenger before you to guard you in the way and bring you into the place which I have prepared. Be on guard before him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression. Hint number 1. For my name is in him. Big hint number 2. But if you diligently obey his voice and will do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and a distresser to those who distress you. For my messenger shall go before you, and shall bring you in to the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I shall cut them off. Sorry. There that is. So that. Okay. Since I was behind there, I'll let that stay up there. Sorry about that. Okay. Also see Exodus chapter 32 and 33, Numbers 20:16, Isaiah 63, 9 through 10. These are examples of this angel. Now again, you can say, didn't that angel follow them, lead them from here, then lead them from here, then lead them from there? Yes, he does. He does. But again, it is that continual appearance. That angel didn't go away during the wilderness time. So it still counts as one. But the unique appearances of this angel are, one, no angel has the independent authority to forgive sin, ever. And since Israel is told this one won't forgive them, that's very odd to say, hey, he's not going to forgive your sin. Don't rebel. Right? Well, why even say that? Unless he would normally forgive them or could normally forgive them, but is under direct instruction not to. And the other thing is, the angel has Yahweh's name in him. All other messengers, every single one of them, have El in their name. Only this one has Yah. And I'll get to Balaam in a second. But let me just comment on this before we move on to that. You see, in Hebrews chapter 1, we're told that the Son of Yahweh has inherited a name superior to the angels. Philippians, Colossians call it the name above all names. Right? And so what does that mean? It means there is Yah in Yeshua. That's what that means. Whereas all the other angels, Gabriel, Mikael, Uriel, they don't have the name of Yahweh in them. So that tells you that this one comes from the direct presence of the King. It comes from highest heaven. Angels can't get into highest heaven. That's another story. So, this brings us to number 10. About Yeshua and Balaam and Balak. You read that excellent story where the donkey is the hero. Okay? Some prophet, his beast of burden, knows more about Father Yah than he does. And what do we remember? That Balak, the king of the Moabites, he sends messengers to Balaam to say, come and curse Israel, because we know that they kicked some butt. And we're worried they're coming through our land, and if you could just curse them. Balaam should never have gone. Father Yah initially told him not to go, but he went anyway. And because he sort of went in quest of money, basically, he encounters this messenger trying to cross the bridge. The donkey avoids this messenger 3 times. But if you read this text, it's crystal clear that messenger is absolutely Yeshua HaMashiach. He's speaking for Yahweh as if it's himself. And he follows all the rules that all the other messengers that were incarnations of Yeshua follow. It's a bit of a longer, more involved story, which is why I'm summarizing here. But when you read that account, in Numbers 22 to 35, and also continue through Numbers 23 and Numbers 24, I believe this will become very clear. What I'd like to focus on, though, is how this account in Numbers dovetails with Yeshua's second coming in Revelation 19. So a little bit of of a twist. Number 1, the messenger in Numbers says, speak only the words I give you. The messenger in Revelation is simply called the word of Elohim. Number 2, the name of the king who calls Balaam means devourer in Hebrew. In Revelation, Yeshua is sent to devour kings. Number 3, both messengers, the one that appears to Balaam and the one in Revelation, manifest with their drawn swords. Revelation has a two-edged sword because it's the second coming. Number 4, both messengers are directly involved in punishing a false prophet. So maybe this is why Revelation 2:14 is where we get mentioned the teaching of Balaam in the first place. I don't think that's a coincidence. Number 11, Yeshua appears as the messenger to Joshua just before the Battle of Jericho. And it came to be that when Yehoshua was by Jericho, he lifted his eyes and looked and saw a man standing opposite with him with his sword drawn in his hand. There it is again. And Yehoshua went to him and said, are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, no, for I have come as the captain of the host of Yahweh, which, by the way, is the role of Yeshua, also in Revelation. And Yehoshua fell on his face to the earth and did obeisance and said, what is my master saying to his servant? The captain of the host of Yahweh said to Yehoshua, take your sandal off your foot, for the place you stand is set apart. Where's the last time we heard that? Mount Sinai, where Yeshua also was. And Yehoshua did so. And Yeshua again has that drawn sword. And that brings us 12. Yeshua's second appearance to Joshua on his deathbed. And the messenger of Yahweh came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I led you up from Mitzrayim and brought you to the land which I swore to your fathers, and said, I do not break my covenant with you. And as for you, do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land, break down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this that you have done? Therefore I also said, I am not driving them out before you, and they shall be adversaries to you, and their mighty one shall be a snare to you. And it came to be when the messenger of Yahweh spoke these words, again unnamed, to all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. So they called the name of that place Bochim, and slaughtered there to Yahweh. And then Yehoshua dismissed the people, and the children of Israel went each to his inheritance to possess the land. And the people served Yahweh all the days of Yehoshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Yehoshua, who had seen the great works of Yahweh, which he had done for Israel. And when Yehoshua, son of Nun, servant of Yahweh, died, 110 years old. Now this reference is extremely important because it shows that when Father Yah proclaimed these things to Israel, it was actually the Mashiach, as the word, who was doing the proclaiming. He's always been with Israel. Now, this would be interesting. Most of you guys know about Armageddon in the book of Revelation, which is actually Armageddon. Did you know that Yeshua had a previous appearance at Armageddon? I'll show you. Sovereigns came and they fought And then the sovereigns of Canaan fought at Tanakh by the waters of Megiddo. They took no spoils of silver. From the heavens they fought, the stars from their courses fought against Sisera, the Wadi of Kishon, swept them away. That age-old Wadi, the Wadi of Kishon, O my being, you have trampled in strength. Then stamped the hooves of the horses with the galloping and the galloping of the steeds. Cursed Meroz, said who? Right. Curse its inhabitants, because they did not come to the help of Yahweh, to the help of Yahweh among the mighty. Blessed above all women is Yael, the wife of Hagar the Canaanite. Above women in tents she is blessed, because he asked for water, she gave milk. She brought out curdled milk in a bowl. She stretched her hand to a tent peg, and her right hand to the workman's hammer, and she pounded Sisera, and she smashed his head, and she pierced and struck through the side of his head. That's a lot of appearances by Yeshua at this time in history. And yet, he's not done with the judges yet. Yeshua and Abba YHWH actually do a tag team conference call, if you will, with Gideon. Yeah. Messiah, line 2. Okay. And the messenger of Yahweh came and sat under the terebinth tree, which is at Ophrah, belonged to Joash the Abba YHWH. His son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress to hide it from the eyes of the Midianites. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him and said, Yahweh is with you, mighty, brave one. Okay, so now we're going to switch. Watch this. It was the messenger just now, right? Okay. Then we hear, and Yahweh turned to him and said, Go in this strength of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hands of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? And he said to him, O Yahweh, with what do I save Israel? See, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And then we switch back to the messenger. We saw Father Yahweh speak, then Gideon asked a question, and the next thing we know, the messenger of Elohim is on now. He said to him, Take the meat and the unleavened bread, lay them on this rock and pour out the broth. And he did so, and the messenger of Yahweh put forth the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. And fire went up out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread, and the messenger of Yahweh went from his sight. Yeshua knows how to make an exit, doesn't he? And when Gideon saw that he was a messenger of Yahweh, Gideon said, O Master Yahweh, for I have seen a messenger of Yahweh face to face. From here, the messenger leaves, and Father Yah closes the discussion. Good talk, right? Number 15. Yeshua appears to Samson's parents. I want to focus just on this part. And the messenger of Yahweh said to Manoah, Let the woman guard all that I said to her. He had appeared to her before, and her husband was like, Did you really see him? Yeah, okay, sure you did. And then, of course, it turns out she's right, he's wrong. And Yeshua comes back and says, Let her not eat any food that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean food. Let her guard all that which I have commanded her. And Manoah said to the messenger of Yahweh, Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you. And the messenger of Yahweh said to Manoah, Though you detain me, I do not eat your food. But if you offer a burnt offering, offer it to Yahweh. For Manoah did not know he was a messenger of Yahweh. But doesn't this kind of remind us what Yeshua says in the Gospel of John? I have food to eat that you do not know about. My food is to do the commandments of my Father. The messenger could not be Father Yah, but it is his son, due to the name, due to this name. Watch this. Manoah said to the messenger of Yahweh, "What is your name? So that when your words come true, we will esteem you." And the messenger of Yahweh said, "Why do you ask my name, since it is wondrous?" What a practical joke he's playing on poor Manoah. Manoah doesn't know that Isaiah is going to say the exact same thing, because Isaiah won't be around for about another 600 years. He does not give his name because his name is Yahweh. Right? So, being identified as a messenger is sufficient, since his name is and is from Father Yah, and Yah is in Yeshua. For more information on how the messenger is actually named Yahweh, number 3, which we went over, you can go over that again. But let's continue straight to the end of this appearance. Again, Yeshua knows how to make another really, really cool exit. Just like he did earlier in Judges. Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to Yahweh. He did wondrously while Manoah and his wife looked on. It came to be the flame went up towards the heavens from the altar. And the messenger of Yahweh went up the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. And the messenger of Yahweh did not appear any more to Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah knew he was a messenger of Yahweh. But next up, we begin a series of what I call the shocking appearances. When people ask, how could a loving Messiah return for war? This was the big debate. Why Revelation took forever to kind of get into the canon. Okay? Even after Constantine said it should be in, they had another council, Carthage, 397. They were still debating it. All the way to the 8th century. They don't like Revelation. They're pushing back. Why? Because how do we reconcile the loving Lamb of Matthew 5 with he makes war? Well, I already showed you he's been to Armageddon before. Now I'm going to show you he makes war all over the Tanakh. He was a warrior before he came as the servant. This one, how's this for a headline? Father Yah tells his son Yeshua to stop destroying Jerusalem. Son, you've done enough destruction. Stop. Well, that'll give you a headache, won't it? It's in the scripture. It's in 2 Samuel 24 and 1 Chronicles chapter 21. David gets a terrifying word. This is where we're going to play what I call the game show from hell. Okay? So I'm your game show host. My name is Gad the Seer. Okay? Thank you for coming to the game show from hell. Okay? Now, with me is David, the king of the unified Israelites. David, you've been a bad boy lately. And so now it's time to play Pick Your Punishment. Okay, David, door number 1. 7 years of famine. Don't like that? Okay. Door number 2, your enemies chase you for 3 months. Or, Dave, will you take door number 3? 3 days of Father Yah's judgment. He's going to take door number 3. He thinks he's going to get off. Oh, David. Well, let's tell you what you're going home with today. And Yahweh sent a plague upon Israel from the morning till the appointed time, from Dan to Beersheba. 70,000 men of the people died. And who did it? The messenger stretched out his hand over Jerusalem to destroy it. That's what he did. And Yahweh relented and said to the messenger who was destroying the people, "It is enough. Now stop your hand." Scripture gets kind of extreme sometimes, doesn't it? Number 17. Yeshua feeds a desperate Eliyahu, the prophet Elijah. In 1 Kings chapter 19. He lay and slept under a broom tree, and see, a messenger touched him and said, "Rise, eat." He looked, and he saw by his head a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank, and turned and lay down. The messenger of Yahweh came back a second time and touched him. "Rise and eat, for the journey is too much for you." And he rose up and ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. But next up, Eliyahu must confront a false god with a very familiar name in the New Testament. This is a shocker. Get a load of who this false god is. But I'm going to first show him in his New Testament configuration. And all the crowds marveled and were saying, "Is this not the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard, he said, "This man does not cast out demons, but by Beelzebub, the head of demons." Remember that name. But Yeshua knew their thoughts and said to them, "Any kingdom that is divided against itself will be destroyed, and any house and city that is divided against itself will not stand." And he then calls Beelzebub, sometimes Beelzebul, same name, Satan. He calls Beelzebub or Beelzebul Satan. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then does his kingdom stand? "And if I cast out demons by Beelzebub, by what do your sons cast them out?" Now that's a very interesting line, because it tells us, you know what? The Pharisees did exorcisms. That's what it tells us. By whom do you cast them out? Because we know you do. Because of this, they will be judges to you. And if I, by the Spirit of Elohim, I cast out demons, the kingdom of Elohim has come near to you. So Beelzebub and Satan are one and the same. And that sets up the situation with Eliyahu. The messenger of Yahweh spoke to Eliyahu the Tishbite, "Rise and go up and meet the messengers of the sovereign in the Shomeron, Samaria. Say to them, is it because there is no Elohim in Israel that you are going to inquire of who? Let this sink in. The mighty one of Ekron is Satan. Right? So therefore, thus says Yahweh, you're not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And Eliyahu went. And Eliyahu answered and said to the captain, and if I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the heavens and consume you and your 50 men. And fire came down from the heavens and consumed him and his 50. And you want to know something? That happened 2 more times. 150 people died by that fire. Now, here's something else. One of the most poignant parts of this is when the last commander, he's seen 100 of his guys go, right? So he's like, he begs for his life, but instead we are told, get a load of this. This is kind of cool. He died according to the word of Yahweh. But who gave that word? The messenger did. At the command of Yeshua is how he really died. So here we see Hasatan himself had many loyal followers in Eliyahu's day, certainly in the city of Ekron, which is why Ahab and Jezebel killed so many righteous people. Moving on to number 19. Yeshua destroys the Assyrian army. 185,000 strong, gone in a night. He came to be in that night who went out. The messenger of Yahweh, Malak Yahweh. And it's the messenger who smote in the camp of Ashur 185,000. That's what it says. And he's unnamed again. Because every time someone tries to ask him his name, he's like, nah, not going to do it. That's why. They rose up early in the morning and saw all of them dead bodies, and Sennacherib, the sovereign of Ashur, broke camp, went away, turned back and remained in Nineveh. Now there is one, what I call an honorable mention. It doesn't count on the official list, but it's important anyway for me to include. Yeshua does not directly appear, but he is kind of described in the book of Job. And that's why I wanted to share this with you. So, you got Job and you got his three friends, but then you got this straggler, this fourth guy, right? Eliyahu, whose name means, my El exists, my El is. And notice, at the end of Job, those three friends have to apologize and make nice and do the sacrifices, and then Job will pray. Eliyahu, he gives the most scathing rebuke of all of those dudes, and yet he doesn't get to apologize. He doesn't have to apologize. He's not rebuked at all. He's like, my job's done here. I'm out of here. Right? And he says the following about Yeshua. He says, if there is a messenger for him, a mediator, one among 1,000 to show man his straightness, then he shows favor to him and says, release him from going down to the pit. I have found an atonement. Kippur. Let his flesh become fresher than a child's. Let him return to the days of his youth. He prays to Eloah and he accepts him. He sees his face with joy and he restores to man his righteousness. He sings to men and says, I have sinned and I have perverted what was right, and it did not profit me. And here's something, again, can a regular angel do this? He has redeemed my being, my nefesh, my soul, from going down to the pit. And my life sees the light. Compare that to a direct messianic reference in Isaiah chapter 61. And here's a little bit more. See, El does all these twice, 3 times with the man, to bring back his being from the pit, to be enlightened with the light of the living. Pay attention, Job, and listen to me. Keep silent and let me speak. If there are words, answer me. Speak, for I desire to declare you right. If not, listen to me, keep silent, and let me teach you wisdom. That's a pretty good description of Messiah, I think. Again, from a guy whose name means, my El exists. So, even though this is not an appearance per se, it's a description of Yeshua under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, I think. And it describes Messiah very accurately. Number 20. David himself sings and names the same messenger. David knew Yeshua, in other words. Psalm 34 and 35. In one unifying message, David describes and names this unique messenger in back-to-back Psalms. The messenger of Yahweh encamps around all those who fear him and rescues him. Oh, taste and see that Yahweh is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Fear Yahweh, you his set-apart ones, for there is no lack to them who fear him. Young lions have lacked and been hungry, but those who seek Yahweh lack not any good matter. Come, you children, and listen to me. Let me teach you the fear of Yahweh. Who is the man who desires life, who loves many days in order to see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from spreading deceit. Turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of Yahweh are on the righteous, his ears unto their cry. The face of Yahweh is against the evildoers, to cut off their remembrance from the earth. But the righteous cried out, and Yahweh heard, and he delivered them out of their distresses, because Yahweh is near the brokenhearted, and he saves those whose spirit is crushed. Many are the evils of the righteous, but Yahweh delivers him out of them all. He is guarding all of his bones. Not one of them is broken. What does that remind us of? Right. Why would that matter in a messenger? Unless that messenger, that's what's going to happen to him later on. Evil does slay the wrong, and those who hate the righteous are guilty. Yahweh redeems the lives of the servants, and none of them taking refuge in him are guilty. Okay, so this is the description. I'm going to get to the name, the actual name. O Yahweh, strive with those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take hold of shield and armor and rise for my help. Draw out the spear and the lance to meet those who pursue me. Say to my life, I am your Yeshua. Let those be ashamed and blush who seek my life. Let those be turned back and abashed who plot evil against me, who plot evil to me. Let them be as chaff before the wind, with the messenger of Yahweh driving on. Let their way be dark and slippery, with the messenger of Yahweh pursuing them. For without cause they hid their net for me. Without cause they dug a pit for my life. Let ruin come upon him unawares, and let his net that he hid catch himself. Let him fall into it in ruin. But let my own being exult in Yahweh. Let it rejoice in his Yeshua. Deliverance. Let all my bones say, Yahweh, who is like you? Delivering the poor from one stronger than he, and the poor and the needy from him who robs him. Ruthless witnesses rise up. They ask me what I knew not. They reward me evil for good, bereaving my life. Well, next up, we're going to see how Yeshua can be recognized even by a pagan king. Here, we read, Nebuchadnezzar made a massive gold statue of himself and commanded them all to worship. Daniel's 3 friends refused, which led to this brutal act and subsequent deliverance. Number 21. Yeshua looks like the son of the gods and saves Daniel's friends. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, fell down, bound in the midst of the burning furnace of the fire. And sovereign Nebuchadnezzar was amazed, stood up in haste and spoke and said to his counselors, "Did we not throw 3 men bound in the midst of the fire?" And they answered and said to him, "Sovereign, certainly, O sovereign." He answered and said, "Look, I see 4 men, loose, walking in the midst of the fire. And they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th one is like the son of Eliyahu." But while this miracle with Yeshua saved Daniel's friends, another king was persecuted, was persuaded to persecute Daniel. That's right. Number 22. Yeshua saves Daniel from the lion's den. So here's the play-by-play action. All right? Babylon is conquered by Cyrus of Persia. Cyrus, the only non-Jew ever called Mashiach in the scripture. He lets the Jews return to Judah to rebuild the temple. Then, after Cyrus dies, Darius takes over. He promptly promotes Daniel to be his 3rd highest official, but the rumors are swelling. He's going to be the number 1 guy. Real soon, he's going to be right under the king's command. And so the plot begins. The other officials are jealous. They feel threatened. And they conspire to bring Daniel down. That's what we have up here. They can't, what are they going to do? Bribe him? Take some pictures with compromised women? No, it's not going to work with Dan. Right? He's too pious. Right? There's no scandal. So that's what they did. They persuade Darius to make an edict that he cannot take back. Right? Saying that no one may worship any deity save the king himself unless he gets permission from the king directly. And they do this and have him sign on the dotted line because they know that Daniel prays to Yahweh and only to Yahweh 3 times a day. Now, when these officials catch Daniel in the act of praying to Abba Yahweh, they drag him before the king. Darius has no choice. The penalty for violating this commandment is to be thrown into the lion's den. I'm actually glad it's that specific, because if it was the penalty is death, he would have had to kill him. But hey, if he survives the lion's den, no problem. Right? Darius is so grieved that evening, he has no entertainment, no food, no musicians, no dancing girls, and no sleep. And dawn arrives. When he came to the den, he called with a grieved voice to Daniel. The sovereign spoke and said, "Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living Elah, has your Elah, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Then Daniel said to the sovereign, "O sovereign, live forever. My Elah has sent" what? Pain. And has shut the lions' mouths. And they did not harm me because I was found innocent before him, and by the way, also before you. O sovereign, I have done no harm. The sovereign was glad, gave orders that Daniel be taken up out of the den. Daniel was taken up out of the den. No harm was found on him because he trusted in his Elah. And as for the officials that thought they could be cute about this and bring Daniel down, well, let's just say the lions didn't stay hungry for long. Now, elsewhere in Daniel, angels are named in Daniel. Gabriel and Michael are named in Daniel, right? So, obviously, those times, not Yeshua. So, if you got Gabriel and Michael running around, why wouldn't they name them in these 2 other areas? They didn't because it's Yeshua. Right? It takes the son of El to save Daniel and his friends. Daniel 5 also shows that sometimes those Babylonians so frustrate our Heavenly Father that, you know what? He's like, you want something done right? I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to come right down. So, give me a second here. Did this? Pardon me for 1 second. So that's the thing. He sends his hand, his divine hand. It says, many, many tekel uparshim. And that is literally the hand of Yahweh. That is not the hand of Yeshua. Okay? So you had a whole variety of messengers coming. Sometimes named angels, sometimes Yeshua, sometimes Yahweh. But there's another appearance. Daniel sees the Son of Man. Okay? I was looking until the thrones were set up and the Ancient of Days, Atikva Yomed, was seated. His garment was white as snow. His hair of his head was like a clean wool. His wheels burning fire. A stream of fire was flowing and coming forth from his presence. And 1,000 served him, and 10,000 stood before him. The judge was seated, the books were open. I was looking in the night visions and saw one like the Bar Enosh, Son of Man. And what was he doing? Coming with the clouds of heaven. And in the Gospels, Yeshua quotes this twice and applies it to himself. One time before Caiaphas, the high priest. And then they said, this is blasphemy. I'm thinking, what blasphemy? To quote from the book of Daniel? Really? And he came before the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, and he was given rulership and preciousness and array that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rule is an everlasting rule which shall not pass away. Right? And his reign is that which shall not be destroyed. And as for me, Daniel, my spirit was pierced within my body, and the visions of my head alarmed me. And the final appearance is otherwise known as the first half of the book of Zechariah. Oh yeah. One really long, detailed, majestic vision. The last one in the Tanakh. In chapter 1, Yeshua, who before tried to destroy Jerusalem, intercedes with Father Yah to stop him from doing it. And the messenger of Yahweh answered and said, O Yahweh of hosts, how long would you have no compassion on Jerusalem and on the cities of Yehudah, against which you were enraged these 70 years? Yahweh answered the messenger, who talked to me good words, comforting words. You know what we call that? Besorot, gospel. Chapter 2. Zechariah sees a man with a measuring line. And he asks him, he says, where are you going? And he says, he's going to measure the city of Jerusalem with that measuring line. Another messenger comes, but the first one speaks for Abba Yahweh directly, according to 2 verse 5. Then in chapter 3, Zechariah is next shown a vision of the high priest, Yehoshua ben Yehozadak. Like Eliyahu, Hasatan is opposing the messenger, but Abba Yahweh sends the enemy packing. The messenger then assures the high priest that his line will continue, and as long as he and his descendants keep the Torah. But he also says, hey, Josh, I got a little secret for you, man. You and everyone here are templates of future people and things, right? Which means one Yehoshua leads to the other one. Yeshua. Right? Now I bring that up because, well, that's what made me a believer. Then in chapter 4, the messenger wakes Zechariah up and gives him a vision of menorahs and 2 olive trees. Then, when asked what they mean, the messenger said some very famous words. These words we quote all the time. But we don't necessarily remember where they came from, what the context was, what the moment was. This is the moment. These are the words of Yeshua when he says, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says Yahweh of hosts." Right? Now, the next thing the messenger shows Zechariah in chapter 5, a flying Torah scroll, which punishes evildoers. I can't wait for that movie. Doc, can you imagine that? Doc, it's a flying Torah scroll! Oh my goodness. That's an you can't unsee that, folks. I'm sorry. Anyway, then you have these 2 winged women. Now this is very interesting because people have asked, are there any female messengers? Any female angels? And if you don't say, you mean not including my wife, you're in trouble. Okay? Trust me on this. Anyway, so these 2 winged women could be female angels. If so, it is the only reference in Scripture to possible female angels. I don't know what's going on there. They throw measures of an ephah into the air, and as the messenger says, a foundation for a house can be built in Shinar, or Babylon. And next comes my favorite part. Okay? And this is also part of the reason why I became a believer 30 years ago. Partly for what's in Zechariah 3, and partly for what is here in Zechariah 6. As I said, this part is most responsible for me becoming a believer in Yeshua. Chapter 6 begins with the original 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Right? They are red, black, white, and speckled. And we read, "So I responded and said to the messenger who was speaking to me, 'What are these, my master?' And the messenger answered and said to me, 'These are the 4 spirits of the heavens coming forth from presenting themselves before the master of all the earth. The one with the black horses is going out to the land of the north. The white ones have gone out after them. The speckled ones have gone to the land of the south. And the strong ones went out, eager to go, to walk to and fro in the earth.' And he said, 'Go, walk to and fro in the earth.' So they walked to and fro in the earth, and he called to me and spoke to me, saying, 'See, those who go towards the land of the north have given rest to my spirit in the land of the north.'" But here is the clincher of them all. Not only did I save the best for last, so did Zechariah. Okay. We read here. The messenger who has been speaking with Zechariah all this time then gives a special word from Yahweh. "Collect silver and gold from the exiles. Then, taking the silver and gold, make a crown and place it on the head of the high priest, Yehoshua, son of Jehozadak. Say to him, Yahweh Sabaoth says this, here is a man whose name is the branch. Where he is, there will be a branching out. He is the one who will rebuild Yahweh's sanctuary." When I saw this, I realized that Zechariah had set this whole thing up from chapter 3, saying that the high priest and his companions represented the future. Yehoshua himself was called the name of the branch. But he was not the branch himself, but he had its name. And Zechariah linked him to the branch to come. And that righteous branch, as Isaiah 11, 1 through 2, Jeremiah 23, 5 through 6 said, were exclusive titles of Messiah. One Yehoshua rebuilt the temple, and the other one surpassed it. And so Zechariah named Messiah Yehoshua 500 years in advance of his birth. I could have debated just about anything on the other side, but I could not deny that. Called him Yehoshua, the long form of the name you would take from the angel Gabriel, Yeshua. Now, I'll tell you something else. It's not on this presentation. If any of you look in a conventional English Bible, NIV, NAU, where you have like an online search engine like Crosswalk or something, if you put in the name Jeshua, Jeshua, you will find that when you look at the Hebrew, it is Yeshua in the Old Testament. And the short form of Yeshua goes back to King David. He was the 9th course of the priestly house. What's interesting is the guy before him, Abijah, is the same division as John the Baptist's father. Okay? So the Baptist comes first and then comes Yeshua. Okay? And you will find that the name Yeshua, with no doubts of pronunciation whatsoever, occurs 28 times in the Tanakh. So this whole idea that you have to go Greek Iesus, then Latin Jesus, then the English Jesus to get to Jesus, well, the English name of the Savior is Joshua. Right? Always has been. Joshua. And you don't need to do this Greek, Latin, English hoop jumping exercise. I just see Yeshua here in the Tanakh. I see Yeshua there in the Aramaic New Testament. And guess what? Then I put it in the Aramaic English New Testament. Because that's what it's always been. But anyway, in February of 1986, when I finally saw this, I dropped to my knees. And immediately, and gave my heart to Messiah Yeshua. Such is the power of this verse. At least for me. So, just as we saw 24 generations that counting to Exodus from Adam to Kohath, right? And then there's another 24 generations, starting with Amram, Moshe's father, to Jehozadak, the last priest before Babylon destroyed the temple. And the third 24 pattern of Yeshua was also revealed by Jehozadak's son, Joshua, who has the same name. Therefore, from one Yehoshua to another, the full impact of Yeshua's words have now come to fruition. He says, consider the lilies of the wilderness, but I say to you, not even Shlomo, Solomon, in all of his glory, was clothed like one of these. And behold, one who is more than Solomon is here. And this third 24 pattern, his own, is the last 24 pattern that leads to eternal life, to the new day, 24 hours in that day. And he said, go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, and immerse them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Ruach HaKodesh, and teach them all to keep what I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you all the days until the end of the world. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for your attention. Okay. So.
For more information, visit onefaithonepeopleministries.com.